Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymour's Loughrea.
Over the Line Extra for a Thursday afternoon. Welcome on in. It's Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh with you for the next little while as we talk hurling. County semi-finals are coming on. It's hard to even contemplate county semi-finals, Sean, when you look at the weather we've had for the last few days. It's been absolutely atrocious, and there's legitimate questions being asked about the viability of all of these fixtures going ahead at the weekend.
Yeah, well, look, I suppose we had it last weekend, hadn't we? Luckily enough, Sunday was a little bit better than Saturday, but the two quarterfinals on Saturday, certainly in Kennybark and Athenry, it wasn't for the faint-hearted. But look, it's one of the, I suppose, logistical things that happen with the split season, yet you're going to be playing in a slightly later time. I suppose there's a few factors here as well. Galway's great run in reaching the All-Ireland football final, for instance, it kind of put back the championship a little bit on both sides of the house in hurling and football. Then I suppose next year, particularly in hurling, you're going to a 16-team format, which probably will lead to less games, which will see the championship finishing that bit earlier. But look, I know our guest this afternoon, Cyril Farrell, has often put forward the idea of swapping it and having the county maybe as a secondary competition, you know, whatever, playing at this time of the year or whatever. Gotcha. But look, we are where we are. Last weekend, I mean, while it was the four hurling quarterfinals, I think the story was Mike Cullen's.
It was the football and a match that we previewed in depth last week, and we were saying that, you know, if there's anybody going to stop Mike Cullen, first thing was Mike Cullen at 4-9 was a nonsense.
Yes,
I think everybody agreed that those odds were ridiculously short, given Salt Hill's path to the final and the tough matches they'd won as well, and the fact that the only, you know, the highest barometer they had was Mobilia Moyloch, when Mobilia were probably at their best in the championship. And that was a cracking match. The game was played entirely on Salt Hill's terms after, albeit a lucky enough goal, gave them the foothold. But again, there's something about winners, isn't it? And we'll talk in a moment about St. Thomas's. When you get on that winning run and that habit, and I spoke about in the programme for the county final that Mike Cullen had only lost one in their last 18 championship matches going back 3 years. When you forget how to lose, it's something is in your psyche there. And Cyril Farrell, I think that's an interesting point that we bring up with St. Thomas's going for 5 in a row. And albeit there was that reversal to Turlock in the group stages, but when it really matters, Mike Cullen did it last week. St. Thomas's have found the formula time and again in the last few years to, even when you're not playing well, you come up with the win at the end.
Yeah, but sure, Ollie, it's a sign of a great team, and Thomas has typified that. I've seen him so, Sean, like even in the group matches last year, there were stages that were under terrible pressure. One day against Castlegar inside in the stadium, you couldn't see them winning. The next thing they wind up winning. They're the ultimate in the hurling world, the ultimate professionals. They're the ones to beat. And again, the 4 teams going into the semi-final this weekend, they're the bookies' favourite to go through the whole way, even though they have a few injuries. But they're very good at getting over these injuries, and slowly but surely they're getting back to a full side. But there's no doubt about it. You can say it's a habit, but when you get into the swing of winning things, like, you know, you look at as of all the good teams, say Ballyhale in Kilkenny, like, you know, Corofin when they were going great in Galway, very hard to beat them. Even when they have kind of, you say, off days, they're still very hard to beat, and usually then on the big day they get it right.
But what is that about? And Sean, I'll bring you in on this as well. Like, you can't control everything on the sideline, so a lot of that has to be inbuilt in the players, that they believe no matter what the scoreboard reads, even if they're a point or 2 points down and it's gone into the red after 60 minutes, they always somehow believe that they're going to get out of it. And not alone do they believe it, but they make it happen then.
Yeah, but I think the use of the word before you go to Cyril, you've used it twice there, believe and then belief. I think that's what a winning mentality instills, Cyril, doesn't it? In that you always see a way out. You don't panic. I mean, we've seen games over the last weekend, and I mean, I'd say the 4 teams that were beaten, say, in hurling last weekend, and then throw Salt Hill and in top of them, they will spend this week with a host of regrets of, why did we not do this? Why did we not do that? But often the belief is allied to composure, to when the chance does present itself, to take it. Because I think you look at all the games again last weekend, most teams got enough chances in the games that were beaten to win the games, but they didn't take the chances. So it's belief, composure. Isn't that what it is, sir? That after a winning team develops that knack, don't they?
Yeah, as you use the word there, composure, to do the right things when you're under pressure. like, to make the right decisions under pressure. That's the big thing. And like a ball that you might say 50-50, if it's not there to score, bring it on, give it to the better lad in the better position, or take the right option on the ball. And as you said, Sean, the matches last weekend typified that. Like every one of us, Tommy Larkin, were in a position to win the matches and just weren't there to push on. Now that's a great sign for the opposition in the sense like that they hung in when things are going wrong. In our own case against Clarinbridge, they hung in, weren't in the game the first half really, and took over the second half. And then we'd be asking, well, what happened? But Larkin still had plenty of chances to win. But like it just shows you, when you get on a run, you're thereabouts. And Loughrea were the same in a right good game in Ballinasloe, probably the best game of the weekend against a very strong Turlough team. And again, like, they had both had strong teams out. Very, very, very good game in the conditions, like, and everyone is saying, well, when are Turlough going to come? But like when you look at their team closely, Dahi Burke got dislocated fingers. Holland was just coming into the game midfield. Strawberry, next thing he went off injured. All these small little things. You need your best troops on the big day, and you need about 3 or 4 more to come on up to that standard. That's where the stronger teams are coming out on top, like, and that's where likes of Loughrea at the moment, Sarsfields. Thomases are good at kind of filling the gaps in the head, and Clarinbridge, they have a lot of players, quality players at the moment. And the weekend in the hurling, if the weather holds up, like, you'd have to say the 4 top teams are in the semi-finals.
And it's been looking that way from a good bit out. You could throw definitely Turlough into the mix as well. And you weren't far off either, Cyril. But in terms of first things first, the chances of Sarsfields being able to topple Thomases, of the 3 teams other than Thomases left in the championship, are Sarsfields perhaps the ones with the most ammunition that they could take them down?
Yes, Ollie, dead on, because we've been back, Sean, to the first match in Athenry, the first game of the championship this year. Best game of hurling all year, Thomases versus Sarsfields. Now that day, Sarsfields scored enough to win any match, but didn't win. Just tell you how good Thomases are. Like this,
225, Cyril, to 319.
Yeah, first round.
You'd half that on Sunday. We look forward to it. Like
you'd never see that in the first round. It was a fantastic game of hurling, played in the right spirit. Now again, they're going to meet. And last Sunday, Kevin Cooney had a great duel with O'Hare from Portumna, full forward, full back. O'Hare being full back, and Cooney beat him. Got eventually around him 3 or 4 times, and they just flashed wide. The next day now, if he does that, they need them balls going into the net. But they did create chances. They could have won well, but they didn't. At the end of the day, they won by a few points. They could have won by 10 or 12. They'll want all them half chances going into the net the next day to beat Thomases, because every chance you get, especially against champions, you want to be taking it.
2 penalties missed as well in that game. Remember that? Gerard Kelly saved 2 penalties on that day for St Thomas's as well. Now, the flip side to that, of course, is when you start looking at it now, Thomases are getting stronger. I mean, Shane Cooney came back the last day, played the last 5 or 6 minutes of the quarter final. They still don't have David Sherry, but they are getting stronger. I mean, I think for Thomases, the big win came after the performance against Turlough. That 4-20-4-17 win over Clarinbridge, I think, reset all of the parameters to normal settings again for them. I thought they were impressive without being over impressive against Capitagal in the second game last Saturday. Did enough. Capitagal twice in the second half of the breeze got back to 4, but never really looked like getting over the line in terms of that. So you have Sarsfields arriving here now. I think it's no goal conceded in their last 3, for instance. I think I keep harping on, if you can stop goals. For instance, look at Loughrea, we talked about them in a minute. They have the best defensive record, bar 1, in the championship. So it's not surprising that they're in the semi-final. The team with the best defensive record, by the way, is gone. That was Turlough, who only conceded 2 goals in the championship. But if you were set up well defensively, Cyril, it's a huge help in these games, isn't it?
Yeah, and like Sarsfields at the moment, after seeing them all year long yourself, Sean, like Kevin Hines and Morrissey in the full back line, Lushin Kane, they're a strong full back line. Morrissey is showing his county form at the moment. He's usually picking up the top forward. Joseph Cooney, to me, is immaculate centre back. Like even last Sunday, Sean, he had to go over and probably had the best forward still in the country, Joe Cannon, and he kept him quiet. Like up to that, Joe was running the show. Niall Quinn has come back to what he showed before, and Niall Morrissey, deadly from accurate balls. Now up front, they'll be expecting more out of, say, Ian Fox, Alex Conair. These fellas will have to kind of really show up. Kevin Cooney, young Murphy is the find of the season, I suppose, really, and Regan. But like, if Kevin Cooney can turn it on, now it's going to be a big duel, because he'll probably be full forward, and you'll have Finton Burke full back. They'll know one another from the county setup, and if you could win that duel in there, they'll have a big say in the match, because goals come from inside, and I think Sarsfields are going to need 2 or 3 of them to win the match.
And the thing about this time of year is obviously the scoring rates are dropped, and Sean was smiling because you're not going to be getting 225 to 319 this time around. But that's where the likes of your defence will really come into its own. And I mean, how tough is it, Cyril, at this time of year on a heavy pitch for those wristy, knacky forwards to really do their thing when it really is at the time of year that suits the backs?
Yeah, like it slows down. First of all, like when the ball hits the deck now, like in Ballinasloe now on Sunday when the ball hit the ground, it kind of moved on the grass. But like in Athenry when it hit it just stood there. No fault to Athenry, the pitch is immaculate. But like it's gone very heavy underneath. Now Salthill is sand based, it'll move on it. But it definitely suits backs more because there's no real bounce. You have to go down on the ball. It's harder to, you can't really roll rise it. You kind of have to jab lift it, like, which takes a little bit longer the whole time. So like it usually suits backs anyway, but a goal would be a big score in this game. And you know, looking at Sarsfields, they're going to they'll try to start very fast because if Thomases can settle in, Thomases are probably the best team, I'd say, in the country at recycling the ball. When a forward gets it and he's not in a good position, they'll come back out the field again with it, recycle and keep popping it to the best shooters. Like, and the likes of Conor Cooney and these fellas are playing out of their skins for the club the whole time. David Burke is still leading the whole way. Fintan Burke's ribs seem to be better again. Now, I don't know what Shane Coney will be playing or not, but young Caulfield, big, well, he's not, he's middle-aged fella, mid-20s, big, strong man. He had a good game the last day. They'll be slow enough to drop him. He could still be on the team. I don't know what Shane will be playing or not, but they're coming into form. But like, it's probably the right time to meet Thomas if you're ever going to beat him, because like it's not they'll be very, very hard to beat in the final. And Sarsfields are probably fancying their chances.
Looking at, and you mentioned Conor Cooney there, I mean, some of the matchups here, like we talked last Sunday in Ballinasloe that it was nearly young Declan McLaughlin from Portumna had a great year. I mean, we're just saying that the fact that Darren Morrissey was picked by Aidan Donoghue to pick up McLaughlin meant that you were doing something right, that Morrissey was going on you. But look at what are we looking at now? I mean, Thomas is going for 5 in a row, 5th county semi-final in a row. But Conor Cooney has been an exceptional captain and leader for this Thomas' team. He hit 111 against Clarinbridge when their backs were to the wall. He you know, even the day they were beaten by Turrick, he was still their top scorer. He hit, I think, was it 8 or 10 points that day as well?
Yeah.
Does Joseph Cooney go on him? Then where does Morrissey go? Does Morrissey go on to Éanna Burke? You know, who picks up James Regan? You have all of these things. At the other end, then you have, say, Fintan Burke, as you just said earlier. Kevin Cooney's come in with 6-10 under his belt in this championship. He said didn't score last Sunday, but look, Sarsfields should have scored 3 more goals last Sunday. Let's call it straight, right? But all of these matchups are intriguing, aren't they?
Well, to see, Sean, you're dead right. Like Kevin Cooney made a lot of scores that, but Joseph Cooney, say he goes on, say Conor Cooney, but does he follow him? Does he stay centre back, kind of sweeping as he's good at, or does he go up the pitch? Conor will go out more. Does he go deep after, or something? Someone else? They're the matchups, and that's what Sarsfields management have to decide. Are they going to let, say, like so Joseph pick up Conor Cooney and stick with him, or are they going to let Joseph play kind of what he likes to do, say centre back sweeping and kind of dominating the game? It's hard to know. Like last Sunday, they had to sacrifice Joseph Cooney in the sense to put him over on Joseph Cannon, but like St. Thomas is now a different kettle of fish, because you mark Conor Cooney, you know, you'll have Éanna Burke, you know, you'll have all the boys popping up, you'll have Darragh Burke.
I thought was very good the last day, in a kind of a middle third role,
coming back to form, and Darragh Burke got a goal against Clarinbridge off the ground. You wouldn't see too often, just met it on the volley. Like, you know, these guys can play up front, and probably the most underrated player in the whole setup is James Regan, still a very, very good hurler. You have all these lads to mark, so everyone has to do their job. And the matchups, while they might work, you still can't forget about the other guys. It's intriguing. Look at the standard is very high in Galway at the moment. The standard at the top teams is unbelievably high, and they're all capable of winning.
What's interesting as well is, for me, I start looking at this time of year now, Cyril, at the overall All-Ireland picture as well, because there's no province. So you're looking at the last 4 teams in Connacht to compete in an All-Ireland semi-final. Now, clearly, Thomases are the favourites in terms of the Galway club in the overall scheme of things. So how much focus would the likes of Ballyhale have now on the last 4 in Galway, given the big picture, or maybe more importantly Ballygunner, who'd be second favourites as champions? Because outside of St. Thomas's, the next Galway club in the odds are Sarsfields at 22-1. You get 33-1 Loughrea if you fancy them going all the way now. And yet, in 2 matches' time, they're in an All-Ireland semi-final.
Yeah, it's funny I used to say that. I know they're judging from outside, but the teams that are in the Galway semi-finals at the moment, they're all capable of going the whole way in the club championship. You look at it closely. Ballyhale, since they've won the county championship this year, they're talking about how unlucky they were last year in the All-Ireland final, which they were against Ballygunner. But they're forgetting about that in the Leinster final, they got a goal in extra time against Ryan's to win it. They got a goal the last puck against the Thomases, played them off the field. I know they didn't win it, but they were very lucky to beat Thomases. Any of them think like Ballyhale, like while they're very, very good, they might be getting the hard matches that we're getting down here. I would fancy any of the Galway teams when they go out, if they get a break at all, to be very, very competitive. Now, Thomases are known because they've been around the block. The other three aren't. Like Loughrea or Clarinbridge at the moment, like, and they're on the other side. They're carrying. If you watch, like Sean will tell you, their subs last Sunday from both teams going on have represented Galway's underage. These are all good hurlers. Maybe not heard of in the world stage, and as you say, in the bookies terms, but they're wrong odds, because like whoever wins the Galway Championship, two games and they've won the All Ireland, and they're well capable. Like you look at the Munster Championship, probably wind up whoever wins between Ballygunner, if Ballygunner win the next day against Killearn McDonald's. I expect them to win, but Ballygunner didn't have to play in the Piersheik. Now whoever wins that will probably win the Munster Championship, but there's only one of the teams coming out, so you don't have to play them all. Like, so it will be,
and Ballygunner will be some game if it comes.
It will, like, I fancy one of them to come out of Munster, but the two of them can't come out. So the Piersheik are getting stronger. I saw tape them early on the year, and you wouldn't recognise them now, Sean, if you saw them again. They're a lot of the same players, but they're unrecognisable as a team. They're coming right at the right time.
It is hard to believe Slaughtneil and Dunloy are ahead of the three of the four Galway teams in the betting overall, which doesn't make much sense. But you've already referenced that second game, Cyril. And I mean, what a match to look forward to. Loughrea and Clarinbridge both have plotted their way through to the championship, and Loughrea arguably have been the most impressive team in the county, given their record.
Unbeaten
I think
in 6
they're
games,
I think they're unbeaten,
as Sean says, rock solid, and they're showing all the old hallmarks of the way they were a decade and a half ago when they came to the fore and won it.
Yeah, well, you see, they're unbeaten. They won the league this year as well, like, and
the last 2 years.
Yeah, they're coming good at the right time, and they have a panel. Like, there's a good friends of mine in Loughrea, and he said, "Don't be telling everyone how many lads we have, and we have not won yet." But I keep saying I'm only content the truth, like, in the sense that they have a good panel. They have a top 20 that will probably get on any team, the club teams in the country. It showed it last year, because when the subs come on, they didn't get any weaker. They'll fancy themselves in the sense they will feel last year they didn't perform against Clarinbridge. But like, as I be saying to teams, it's okay saying you didn't perform. You perform as well as you're let. You have to take into consideration that's what you perform because the other team were that bit better than you. So they're going out to get, I'm not saying revenge, but to turn around that defeat from last year. But they have great teams, but like, so has Clarinbridge, a lot of very good hurlers, and they're all able to hurl. They might be extra physically big and strong, but they are good hurlers. Now it's a really intriguing game. I see the bookies have Loughrea as odds on as favourites this time, and they rarely get it wrong.
Looking at the bookies much now, would you, Cyril, in fairness? Someone told you that, I'm sure.
I wouldn't be looking ahead at this stage, because like, to me now they're two 50-50 in this. They're 50-50 games, much the same as Loughrea and Turlock last Sunday. Just hard to separate them. They both have very good hurling forwards. They both have exceptionally good backs, and they both have exceptionally good kind of subs coming on. You're going to find maybe a referee's decision, someone getting caught with a red card or yellow card. Like, these things can happen in a championship game, and that could have a big bearing. And a small thing can swing it. Like, that to me is could be the game of the year between Loughrea and Clarinbridge. Going back, even reference back to last year.
Like, we've talked a lot about other things, but I have to say, at half time in Athenry last Saturday, and I know I don't want to rekindle the wounds for you, Cyril, but Larkins were 7 points up. You were 7 points up against Clarinbridge, right? You look to be in a great place. I have to say that I was very impressed with what Clarinbridge did next, right? They scored 3 goals in that second half. They took the game over. They kept you to what? You went from 12 points to 15, so only 3 points.
3 points.
Now, I know there was a strong breeze. But we'll say you would have to be impressed with what Clarinbridge did in that second half. The switch of TJ Brennan to the attack, you were wondering, was that going to rob their defence? But their attack now, you have TJ as a fulcrum of it, but you have Gavin Lee there, you have Mark Kennedy, you have Evan Island. Their attacking prowess is there now. And I think that game, they probably were deflated by the Thomas's defeat, because that was a big defeat. Thomas is missing so many players on the day. Again, I think there was an edge to Clarinbridge even before the game, when they went 3-year warm-up, I think, before the match or whatever. But it gave you a bit of an idea of their mindset going in, that we're not going to be bullied here.
Yeah, but you'd have to say, Sean, that, there was a bit of scrum, handbag stuff, I call it, all into play. But like, it didn't affect us in the sense. I think I'd love to have something happen like that in the second half, because like we hurled fine the first half. It was like poking the bear, but in the second half they took over. You see, they have quality players. You look at the full forward line. Mark Kennedy, Salmon, Evan Island, all capable of scoring, all making scores. Outside, you have, as you said, TJ doing the kind of the donkey work, a great young fella. Gavin Lee, very underestimated, and Daly, the usual last Michael Daly, say kind of puck outs coming down top of him. The two boys midfield, good hurlers. Foley's come back to himself. Kilduff is a good hurler. And then, like in the defence, Shane Ryan's probably going to be a Galway senior fairly soon. You have the two Bannons, another Lee fella and another Salmon lad. I'm trying to think of the full back. Oh, yeah, the young McGann, a young fella. They have a nice balanced team. Very much the same as Loughrea and very much the same age profile. You know, like that. These guys know one another inside out, to be going to college together, playing, maybe even living together some places in college, in digs and that sort of stuff, or in flats. But like, it's going to be an intriguing game. Like, and as I say, like a lucky free here or there is probably going to win this game.
It's a big weekend for Clarinbridge as well, Cyril, with the minor final. And who'll forget last year's spectacle in the stadium? And I know everyone was given out because it was Ormore Mary also in the final last year, and it's the same two teams this year, with a lot of the same players as well. And the prospect of this also finishing level and maybe going to penalties if need be as well. But the minor grade, these two clubs in particular just look to be head and shoulders above everybody else. There's obviously an awful lot of good work going on.
Yeah, well, the good work is going on, and they have the numbers. Like, they are putting in the work, and they have great people over them. And like a lot of, say, great hurlers are switching into or more people that were born out of the country and into Clarinbridge, and they're living there, and rightly so, their kids are playing there. But they are being coached well. But the big thing is the numbers. They could field 2 or 3 underage teams, say, even at under 17 level. Whereas out the country, you'll be doing well, Ollie, to have one team. Like, that's the facts of life. So, like, it doesn't stop you producing good hurlers in the smaller clubs, but it means that in the A Championship you won't be competitive, but you still can produce good players. You get a not diamond or two coming through, but you won't have the numbers coming through that the likes of, say, Ordenmore, or at the moment, say, Clarinbridge would have, or you look at Turlockmore, Athenry would have the numbers, Claregaw would have the numbers, you know, any of the city clubs. Like, whereas out the country, the last strong club out the country probably now would be St. Thomas's. But when these crowd go, like, again, they'll be like more other clubs fighting for, you know, fighting to get numbers out there. That's the big thing.
I suppose tactically last Sunday, if you look at it from a Turlockmore point of view, and you would assume that Clarinbridge are going to learn from this. I mean, Turlockmore didn't really pick up Jamie Ryan, which was surprising. Jamie Ryan had a huge impact on that game for Loughrea. Scored 5 points in that kind of deep midfield role. Anthony Burns also drops out in the tactical way they're set up. He hit 3 points. I think inside as well, Martin McManus and Joe Mooney are huge players this year. Now, I thought Ronan Burke did a good job on Joseph Mooney, keeping him scoreless, but Martin McManus caused a lot of trouble to Turlock, and maybe again matchups that you wouldn't have expected there manifest itself. But you would imagine that would be one thing Clarinbridge would be looking at big time this week.
Yeah, Sean, they have that advantage of seeing what Loughrea did, and they did it very well. It was Jamie Ryan's best game this year. Now, look, his standards are high, and you're expecting to be good every day, which can't happen really. Like, he had a right good game. To me, like, he'd probably be called back in. The last time he was in the Galway panel, didn't go for him, and I'd expect him to be called back in again if he can produce another game or like that. But he will be picked up because he was allowed to go free. He had a great game, and as you say, the forward like McManus is having a great game, great campaign. This guy is a very good footballer as well, and Regan is good. Like, and Joe Mooney well held the last year, but they are forceful, and you know, then you have the younger regime coming, the Shaughnessy's, the Morgans, these fellas. There's a rake of these fellas coming, first cousins, brothers, and they're all good players, all quality hurlers. So to me, you have a great bunch of between Clarinbridge and Turlockmore or Loughrea. There's a lot of very, very kind of young age stuff coming through. Whereas St. Thomas's and Clarinbridge, while they have young lads as well, like a lot of them are seasoned. Now, Thomas or Sarsfields are playing a lot of that under 20 team that were very unlucky against Turlockmore, and they're coming through. They're very good hurlers. The Thomases have an odd lad like ourselves coming through, but they're relying on, you know, the Bucks and the Coonies and, you know, the Regans. They're around a while.
Class base though, sir. That's a dream base that Thomases have.
Yeah. Well, you see, unreal. Like, they have leaders. Look at David Burke there moving on, but like, he's a natural leader. Conor Cooney every day you see him. Fintan Burke is going into the role. Mark Regan, James Regan. They're also good.
Conor Burke thrown over 2 points the last day against She from wing back. These guys know what to do, don't they?
They do, yeah. They're a good team, and they're good under pressure. And I suppose, like, you know, like as you say, Cathal Burke probably very underrated. Never gets the credit at all. You see, the other boys are getting all the write-ups. This fella, like, Anya Burke on his day can flick 3 or 4 points from any angle. Look, I'm looking forward to Sunday. I just hope that there's not a storm inside in Pearse Stadium, because if there's stronger breeze, it makes the game of, everyone says a game of two halves, but I'd love to see a game, say, of 65, 70 minutes flat out with no breeze.
It'll be a dream one, that's for sure. I mean, the bookies tell us it's Thomas's and Loughrea. We keep harping on about favourites. I mean, if either favourite was going to be lose, who's most vulnerable, do you think, Cyril?
I don't think there's any favourites. I really don't. I suppose Thomas's might be favourites under tradition and what they're going for 5 in a row. They have to be favourites, I suppose, really, until they're beaten. They would be the favourites. But like, to me, Sarsfields won't feel Thomas at all, especially after that first display. Like, that was unreal hurling. If they produce, I know that the time of the year is different, but that, to me, if they can produce that again or near it, it'll do, because it's very hard to do what Thomas did. Of the other teams, like that, even though Loughrea favourites, to me that's a 50-50 game, because like, no matter how you look at, as Sean said, there will be more matchups than Clarinbridge will have seen what happened with not matching, kind of match for match or like for like against for Turlough. So they'll try to have the matchups right, and you could get a completely different game. But I see that as a 50-50 one, with Thomas as a slight favourites and on the other one.
Cyril, we look forward to your company at the weekend. Cyril is going to be on commentary duty with Sean for Sarsfields and Thomas's, and then with Niall for the Loughrea Clarinbridge match on Sunday in Pearse Stadium. There's bound to be a huge crowd there, Sean.
Oh, there is. And look at, I mean, the one thing I saw the day of the intermediate final, I think I saw Cappy playing Mike Cullen in Pearse Stadium. It was a horrendous day, but in fairness, the surface in the stadium was very good. And you remember that drainage job that was done a few years ago. So look at it, probably it's the best surface right now, even though you couldn't say a word about Ballinasloe last Sunday. In fairness, the surface was good, but the day was better.
Well, everyone will be giving out about having to go into Galway and go into Salthill. But from a management perspective, and you've talked to the guys, are the teams happy to play a semi-final in Pearse Stadium and have a run out ahead of a final there 2 weeks after?
I'd say they would, and I think the dynamic is that at the end of the day, if you were in a county semi-final, you would like to take the parameter of the pitch out of the equation. In other words, that it's
not a factor.
Not a factor. And I think, once you're in the best pitch, and I think, look, for these 4 teams, as Cyril has said, and I think you could include 1 or 2 more that aren't there now out of the last 8. This is a highly, highly competitive championship, and teams are doing stuff that inter-county teams were doing not that long ago. Sarsfields won a championship, for instance, in 15. It's hard to believe that it's their first semi-final since 18. So they'll have a little chip on their shoulder to say, listen, we didn't drive on from 15, right? Thomas's are doing everything in their power. I mean, they're looking at 5 in a row. Clarinbridge got to the final last year, lost it. So what the minimum at the start of the year that Evan Nyland or Jarrett Nyland, when he was sitting down, whether he liked it or not, was we have to get back to the final to right that wrong. So he's 1 step away from that. Loughrea, you look at their management team. I mean, it's a who's who. Right? And I know that it'd be giving me a stick for highlighting that at times, but look at what they have on the sideline. So these teams, it's 24/7, Cyril, isn't it, in terms of prep for county championship now? And these teams are doing so much, and the margins are tight in all of these games. You look back, I tell you, on those games last weekend, penalties, decisions made, lack of composure in certain stages. You could have different teams here. So it's what I'm saying in a long-winded way is the 4 teams will want everything to be right on Sunday, but the big thing is they'll want to perform.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, and as you say, Sean, the amount of work that's got in preparation is unreal. In all the top teams now, there's no all the top teams, and the best ones are only going to get through, and you'll have hard luck stories and missed frees and frees you didn't get. That's part of it. You have to take on that thing. And already, like, you're going to have clubs getting kind of looking forward to next year, preparing for next year already, because you don't feel it coming. And next year is a different year. It's only 4 teams per group, and probably only 2 to come out. So that's a different ball game altogether. Like, so you could be in a final this year, and as you said, like, if you're in a final this year, you want to get back, even winner, you want to get back to next year. If you don't, you didn't do as well at all.
All right, Cyril, we're going to let Cyril go because, of course, he's going to be with us again on Sunday afternoon.
No, God bless
that. On Saturday as well. Thanks, Cyril.
Yeah, you're streaming the minor.
We're going to be streaming the minor game, and we know now it's 12 noon, don't we, Sean?
Yeah, there's been a change. Come back from 12:30. I think that's to allow Ardmore and Mary fans to get to the Camogie final as well. And this is another thing we keep saying. I think no one nearly gets a chance to dwell on last week at all in terms of this new system, because games are coming thick and fast. But look at what a minor final again, as you said, went to that controversial penalty decision shootout last year. You have Aaron Nyland on the Clarinbridge side, you have Rory Burke on the Ardmore side. Is there going to be a shootout between these 2 guys again? We also have a minor B final replay. You have a junior 1 final as well. So look at an awful lot of things still at stake in terms of hurling. But look at, it's at the business end now, and what's going to happen now in a week or two is we'll have nothing at all to talk about.
So you talked about the minor final, of course, at 12, because at 3 o'clock, all the Ormore Mary contingent are going to be heading for Duggan Park for the County Senior Camogie final, where Ormore Mary will try and down the champions, not just of Galway, but of the country, Sarsfields. Is it a big ask, Tommy Devan, as we bring in our match commentator for the County Camogie final? I mean, Sarsfields, in many eyes, are favourites to go and retain the All-Ireland. Don't mind Galway. What chances have Ormore Mary?
Yeah, I think, Ollie, on any other given year, you'll be looking at Sarsfields probably going for another record county final. This is their 7th title, or 7th final. They've won 5 out of the last 6. So the only stumbling block here, lads, is, the loss of Orla McGrath and the doubt over Maria Cooney. So couple other injuries in the Sarsfields camp as well. So this is really going to put them to the pin of the collar, I think, on Saturday. But, talking to both camps during the week, they're both managers, backroom teams, really looking forward to this final. But it's a huge opportunity, Ollie, for Ormore Mary, because, you just have to look at some of their players, the likes of Baelish O'Reilly, Niamh Hannafy, Roisin Black and Rachel Hannafy as well, and their captain, Christine Brennan. They were beaten well in the final last year in the end, but they were with Sarsfields for long periods of that game. What's going to happen on Saturday again? It's hard to beat. As you listen to Sean and Cyril talking about, winning matches, winning, and you build up that confidence, and it's almost like second nature that you go and win county finals. Sarsfields have been doing that. Have they got the backroom, the backup in the bench this year to do it? They have a lot of young girls coming in there, and a lot of girls chomping at the bit to get their chance. But it's going to be interesting. But I think if Ormore Mary have any big opportunity, then 2022 could be one of them.
Have they improved, Tommy, do you think, Ormore Mary from last year?
Yeah, most definitely. The only loss they had in this year's championship was to Sarsfields by 3 points, with both sides probably not showing a real hand in those games. But, I think those 2 injuries, Sean, you take 6 and 11 out of Sarsfields, and that's down the spine of the team, and they're 2 big players for them. Where does Hopper rejig 6 and 11? Who does he put in there? But if there's any man able to do that or conjure up a plan to stop Ormore Mary getting over the line, then it's Hopper McGrath. But to answer your question, Sean, yes, Ormore Mary have improved this year and are in with a right good chance. I think there's going to be a huge crowd there at the weekend on Saturday, and it's a busy weekend, as you said, for Ormore Mary. They're going to have to make their way from Kenny Park to Ballinasloe, but I think they will make it, and they will be in time.
Well, it's 3 o'clock throw-in as well, Tommy, so there's no panic if you need the lights.
You don't want penalties, though, on that and right.
Because it's about the only pitch that we have lights in. More of that and on, as we talked about Wexford Chadwicks Park having their brand new lights,
up their lights
for the visit of Galway coming up next February. But there is a Senior B final as well, Tommy, to mention on Saturday. That's St Thomas's and Davits, so their parish has been drawn one way and then the other as well over the weekend as well, but at least on 2 separate days for the Thomas's contingent. That's an interesting Senior B final to look forward to in Clymer, early at 12 o'clock on Saturday. Yeah,
and they already threw in there. Both met in the group stages as well early on in the year. Davits had 9 points to spare over Thomas's that day, but finals take on a life of their own. It's a different time of year. The pitches are heavy, as we all know. But everyone would be looking at Davits to maybe be a little bit too stronger than St Thomas's. But St Thomas's won a county final a short number of years ago. And they'll be looking to maybe add the B title and restructure, get going, and to be a nice fill up for them if they could overcome Davits in that game at 12 o'clock. But I have it very much 50-50 there this time of the year, and I suppose all we can do is wish the best of luck to both teams. They're probably wishing that they were in the other A championship now and playing in a county senior final this year, but it's been dominated by Sarsfields over the last number of years, and Ormore Mary are in the final and a repeat of last year's final at the same venue next Saturday. So best of luck to all 4 teams, and congratulations as well, of course, to Castlegar, the intermediate champions, after last week's 1-point victory over Saltine Loughrea.
Good stuff, Tommy. Looking forward to your commentary with the Melda live on Galway Bay FM at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Full and uninterrupted coverage of that match between Sarsfields and Ormore Mary coming to you live on Galway Bay FM from Duggan Park. Tommy Devan joining us there. I suppose the one man I have to feel sorry for this weekend is whoever's doing the scoreboard in Loughrea on Saturday for the replay of the Minor B1 final. And he'll have no problem on one side putting down Liam Mellows, but up at the top he's got to somehow put up Rahu Newcastle Barna na Furbuca. Unless like
abbreviations will come into play.
There could be a new Furbo we could come up with there or something. But that's a B1 final to look forward to as well at the weekend. Throw in senior football relegation. Intermediate football relegation. There's a lot going on even outside of what we're talking about, and plenty of matches at under 17, under 19 level as well in the football championships this weekend. So next weekend we've got 3 football teams, Sean, heading into provincial championships, including Moycullen against Westport. A real novel look. Both sides first ever kind of club championship game, which is hard to believe.
And Westport's threatening for a long time in Mayo.
And they finally got over the line in the Mayo final last week. Damore are out early against St. Malash Gales from Sligo on Saturday. And also you've got the Clifton footballers. So we'll focus in on those 3. We'll have a look back at the club hurling semi-finals. And of course we'll have a week then to wait before the county senior hurling final on November the 20th. So don't worry, Seymours of Loughrea, there's still plenty more bang for your buck between now and the end of 2022. For now, thanks for watching.
Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh in association with Seymours Loughrea.